Most people don't know that they have what's called a 0% interest business credit card. You're able to borrow this money, go out and leverage it without interest accruing. Someone might listen to this and they might say, well, I'm just starting. There's 2 accounts that I just told you about. They'll allow you to backdate. When a business application asks you, what is your business revenue? That question is asking you, what do you predict you're gonna make? So if a person's a brand new business owner and they don't have the brand information, they'll put 0. You're not gonna get much funding. They might give you a $5,000 card, but we're helping brand new business owners go get $40, $50, $60,000 because we understand what the questions are asking. People talking about like your credit score, you need to have a 750, 800. You don't need that. You just need the right data points.
So Darius, how about you start off, just tell everyone a little bit about, what you help people with and how'd you get into that?
I help people start and grow 6-figure funding companies part-time. And the reason I got into it because over pandemic, I started learning about like credit because I was the guy who I used to do nightlife in my previous life. And over pandemic, nightlife had shut down up north. The clubs were all closed, lounges were closed. So I was kind of forced to learn something new. And as entrepreneurs, like we don't like just kind of sitting around. So I went to a conference out in Georgia. It's called Circular CEOs. And there's a bunch of people talking about different things: online business, credit repair, funding. And what I had told people, because at the time I didn't really have a high income skill, but I kind of knew marketing because in the nightclub you have to fill it up.
Right.
So
you're like a promoter.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, That's exactly what it was. So I met some people who were in different fields, and we started just like masterminding, hopping on Zoom. And one person was talking about credit, and I didn't know that you could get access to funding from the banks, right, without having to provide proof of income. Like they have something called no doc funding. So once I learned that, I'm like, screw this. That's the problem I have. I need to just get some capital to start right now. So I had just take heed, and I had just said like, I'm going to start learning this thing for myself. Went out, got a lot of funding, got about $167,000 in funding from the banks. And what that allowed me to do was now get coaching, learn skills, and more so people started asking me, how are you doing that? Can you do it for me? So then I had taken one mastermind where I had learned how to set up your funding company in the operational side. And then we started funding a lot of people, getting people access to funding. And I just seen the impact it had for people. Because where I'm from, like we all have the same problem. Like everyone's like, oh, I got this great idea, but no one has the ability to put anything behind it because people don't have the money. So that's kind of how I got into it. And it's been cool. 2 years later now, we funded $25 million. And now we're teaching people how to do the same thing.
Yeah, it's funny how whenever you start learning something and you have success, people always want to learn. And then it kind of goes that direction. That's what happened to me. So you're going to have to explain the funding because that to me makes no sense. How can you know you're getting funding without any credit? So kind of walk everyone through that process who's listening, how you can do that.
Absolutely. Most people don't know that 90% or about 80% of national lenders like your Bank of America's, U.S. banks, Chase Bank, they have what's called a 0% interest business credit card, which means you're able to borrow this money, go out and leverage it to learn or just put into marketing operation systems without interest accruing. So during that time period, you typically have your 1% minimum payment. But the good thing is that's only on the principal. So it's not like interest is just accruing. The way you qualify for these products though is you need your credit profile to be in order. So when people talk about like credit a lot, people talk about like your credit score. You need to have a 750, 800. You don't need that. You just need the right data points. So I kind of like to compare it to a financial resume, right? So data points essentially strength and age when it comes to a credit profile, right? So for example, if a kid's 21 years old, he's fresh out of college, he doesn't have much reporting on his credit, maybe besides his student loan. So he might have a 750, but he's not going to be able to go out and get money for a lot of money from the banks because he hasn't built any strength or age. Versus someone who might be, 40 years old, maybe they only have a 700, but they might have a mortgage on there, an auto loan. They may have handled some personal credit cards in the past. And because they have a lot better resume, they can go out and apply for these credit products on the business side and get access to them, right? Anywhere from $10 all the way up to $75,000 per lender.
And are these usually credit cards or loans or both? Or
great question. So I teach people you want to leverage credit cards first, only because they have the 0% interest rate versus new entrepreneurs. We don't want them going out and getting most traditional loans are somewhere between 15 and 30%, which is going to drown most people because they don't even know how to execute on their skill first. So I recommend credit cards first, and then you have something called lines of credit, which is essentially liquid cash, right? If you get approved for a line of credit, what'll happen is they'll drop money into an account and you can move however much money you want into your business checking account from the line of credit, and interest will only be accrued on the money that you moved into your checking account. Then you have loans, which are typically the highest interest rates. But because a lot of people don't know about 0% interest cards, typically they're misinformed and they go straight to loans.
What's the difference between a person who gets approved for that and a person who doesn't get approved? Is it like, I mean, I know you're just talking a little bit about their, credit history and stuff like that, but like if someone comes to you like, hey man, I need help with this, what are you usually doing to make sure they do get approved?
Absolutely. So what we'll do is we'll teach them how to add what we call primary accounts, meaning accounts that are going to report on your credit profile. So essentially, if someone comes to me and they're like, hey, I'm just starting to build this thing out, I want to get in position to get funding, then what I recommend people doing, if you don't have anything or you're fresh, start adding something called credit builder accounts, right? So these are people may have heard of like Self, Kickoff, Credit Strong. And if people are paying rent, you can actually get your rent reported on your credit. You can go to rentreporters.com and they'll start reporting every single month.
Interesting.
So now what happens is you go from having no accounts reporting to now being able to go out and add 5, 6, 7 primary accounts. And we want to let those age for a few months. So now when you're going to apply for funding, we see, oh, this person has been making on-time payments every single month.
And is it usually you're only applying to the banks, right? So there's the big banks, and that's kind of the best strategy.
It depends on your situation. If it's someone starting out like what we just talked about, for that person, I want them to start on the personal side with some credit unions. Credit unions are your local, smaller institutions. The underwriting is typically going to be a lot easier versus like national lenders. It's pretty black and white. You're getting this amount or you're not. But with credit unions, what happens is you get a little more leeway, right? Because they're smaller institutions. Their goal is to help their members out because typically you have to become a member, right? So what people can do is they can go to Google and they can type in literally credit unions in my area. And then what I tell people to do is go on the websites, make sure they have the product or products that you're looking for. Make sure that the interest rates are decent. Typically on a credit card, we want under 12%. The lower, the better, obviously. And then I tell them to start looking at what products they have on the business side because you're going to need at least 2 personal credit cards with a $5,000 limit or more, because what that's going to do is when we go to the business side, now they're going to say, okay, this person is lend-worthy because I've seen that they've already handled some personal credit, right? They've already set up, I tell people set up things like bills, set up auto pay, things you're already doing in your life so that we start building a rapport. Now when we go to the business side, it's a lot easier because we have that history.
How much funding can they usually get? Is it based on like what determines how much funding they actually can get?
The stronger the profile, the more funding you're going to be eligible for. So what you want an ideal profile to look like is this: at least 10 primary accounts. Primary accounts are just anything that's reporting in your name. At least 4.5 years of age history, right? Meaning you've been making on-time payments for a little bit of time. Someone might listen to this and they might say, well, I'm just starting. How do I increase my age history? Well, there's 2 accounts that I just told you about that you can report your rent reporter and rental karma. They'll allow you to backdate. So let's say you've been paying rent for a couple of years, you'll actually be able to backdate and now you get credit for that history. Another thing a person can do is they can check out something called tradelinesupply.com where they allow you to purchase authorized user accounts that will report on your credit, and you can purchase one that's older. So now it helps out your overall average age. So those are the 2 biggest factors. Outside of that, you want 100% on-time payments. If you got late payments, the banks aren't giving you any money, right? Derogatories, no collections, charge-offs, anything like that, we got to get rid of.
So let's say someone has a messed up credit history,
Yes.
right? Like they're coming to you and it's like red alert, F credit, and they're like, "Hey man, like, can you help me out?" What do you do to help that person because they're already in a really bad situation?
Great thing about credit is everything can be repaired and restored. So what we teach people how to do is we leverage a software called M2 FICO Fixers, and what it does is it leverages AI to identify all the negatives that are on their credit report. And all you have to literally do is upload a report. It'll do the hard work of identifying why those accounts aren't in compliance, and it'll start attacking those. So every 30 to 35 days, you get an update on whether that account was deleted or whether it's still reporting. What I tell people is with credit repair, see, a lot of people will try to promise people like, oh, super fast results, so you'll get it off in 30 days. But I tell people transparently, like, typically average to remove negative items is typically going to take somewhere between 2 and about 6 months. That's average time. It can be sooner, it can be a little longer, but that's typically the time frame. But while you're cleaning up your credit with the software, you should be adding these primary accounts, building it out with age. So as you're deleting, we're now building, which is going to put us in position when we're ready to go.
So I know you said you use AI, but how are you able to just go in and delete a report? Is that what you're saying? Like it's deleting an actual negative credit history?
Absolutely. Every single account must meet 5 points of compliance. Most people don't know this. So every single account that you have reporting any negative, it has 5 points of compliance it doesn't meet. So what the software does, it goes in there, and about 99% of credit reports have actual inaccuracies. So the software is going to go in there and it's going to identify which points of compliance are not accurate. And what it's going to do is going to dispute on that behalf.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
The people coming to you, usually what are they using the funding for? Like, what's the main reason they're usually getting funding? Is it to start their businesses?
Yes. So about 90% of people that come to us for funding are looking to start businesses or they put it into real estate, right? So in our program, even so, about a third of people are real estate investors. And then about a third are there because they're looking to add funding as a service to a business they already have. And then the other third is about people who are just looking to start funding companies.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, because I think for me, I mean, I use zero APR credit cards, but I never like looked into doing it this way, like, you know, with the banks and all that type of stuff. Okay, so that's super interesting. So talked a little bit about obviously like how to build your credit, how to fix it. I want to switch a little bit more to the business side. So walk us through your normal sales process. Like how right now do you typically get customers? And so maybe like, hey, we post, you know, on YouTube and then we do this. Like I think people really like hearing that stuff.
Absolutely. So the cool thing about the funding company is like you're selling money. So, you know, people always say, if you want people to like you, you know, go sell ice cream. I say, no, go start a funding company, right? So we leverage a lot of relationships. I do have a decent social media following, but we got students in our program who have under 2,000 followers who are making $30,000, $40,000 a month in commissions because if you literally leverage a few relationships, you can go easily make a couple 100,000. So for example, if I know that Tanner has a community, right? And I know your community is maybe business owners and they're looking to scale, they're looking for dollars to put into marketing, advertisement. I could say, hey, Tanner, I want to come speak to your community for free, give them some value, right? And then at the end of that call, I will put up the criteria that's needed. And I'd say, if anyone meets this criteria and like we need to just do it for them, right? All I'm going to do is I'll drop a link and we can hop on a call. Now, the benefit for you, because you're probably like, why would I do that? Because what I would do is we charge 10%. So we charge nothing up front, 10% commission fee. So if I go get someone $100,000, it's $10,000 payout. I say 10.
And they know that, right? So they only get 90 grand.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we make them well aware before we even start any funding process.
Right.
So the benefit for you is it's a win-win situation because I kick you back 2 to 3%. We negotiate. Right now, you're getting $3,000 for just allowing me to speak in your community. I get $7,000, and then your person that were referred for us, they're getting $90,000 of leverage to be able to grow their business. So you can, I tell people, coaches and consultants are great to build relationships where we teach them how to our DM scripts for how we start those conversations with them. Another great niche is people who are credit repair specialists, right? Because in my program, we emphasize funding business because you don't need good credit to go fund people. You just need to know their skill set. So we teach you how to reach out, do outreach to people who are in credit repair, leveraging Instagram, DMs. Hey, how are you? My name is Darius Benders. I run a funding company where we help small business get access to anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000. I see you do credit repair. Looks like you're crushing it. Would like to know if you'd like to make anywhere from an extra $30,000 to $200,000 this year, hands off, right? An instant spark of conversation because it's hands off. But I tell people,
great offer. It's a great offer.
Great offer, right? So it's an offer that no one's saying no to. But I tell people is you do want to make sure you have at least 6 posts set up, kind of to have that credibility when they come back to your page. But once we get on the phone, what we do is we break down to now the affiliate partner that essentially the way it works, right? Because I give people in my program access to banking relationship managers, which essentially work at the banks. And what they're able to do is help people now push through and get higher limits. So we pitch that to the referral partners so they understand that we're legit. And of course, receipts obviously help. But that's how we're getting a lot of people, results and partnerships to where you don't need the social media aspect. Then of course, the social media would just add on to it, right? So a good deal of our leads do come from social media, of course, because we built that rapport. I tell people when you're running a funding company, you want to make sure that you call out that person because what'll happen is even when I started, I was saying anybody who's looking for funding, come through. But what happens is you fill up your pipeline with all these leads and no one qualifies. And now you're wasting time. So I teach people be very, very specific. Do you have a 700 and no derogatories? If they meet those 2 criteria, typically we can get them something. But from there, that's a conversation starter. So from there, they have what's called an intake form where they'll fill out a couple questions. Are you looking for personal or business funding or both? Do you have any derogatories? How many inquiries do you have in the last 6 months? And what's your credit score? Very simple. From there, they get to schedule a call. From there, we pick up the phone. We're completely transparent. Hey, hope all is well. We'll ask them, what are you looking to use the funding for? Just because I believe that we want to put them in, if we can help them get to where they want to get, it builds more trust. And not only that, but you can make money on the back end. I'll talk about that later. But essentially from there, we let them know it's a 10% fee. We let them know the way it works. They signed a legal binding document if they agree. And then from there, essentially, we get to funding.
Nice. And then the funds get sent to you and then you send it to them? Or
Nope, the funds get sent to them.
But they got to send it to you.
They got to send it to
What
us.
happens if they don't send it to you?
So we can report them to a collections agency.
Okay.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
work with a collection agency that you can report to that, report them to that. Typically, I've been doing this for 2 years now. I've had one person that tried me, but for the most part, people are good. So yeah, that's typically a process with that. Once we speak to them and they agree, and they sign the contract, now we send them an onboarding form, which just gives us all their details for their business. So when we're filling out applications, we don't really need much contact with them. Yeah.
You said something about usually they have to have a 700 credit score, which, that seems pretty high from the standpoint of why wouldn't they just go maybe get an Amex Gold or a Visa? Like, is there any reason for that? Because that's the first thing I thought. I was like, that seems like decently high, right?
Yeah, it's decently high. So a lot of people got good credit scores, but don't get high limits. So it's more than just the score. That's why at the beginning I emphasize credit profile over credit score. The 3 things they're looking for is your credit profile. We kind of talked about that. Second thing is going to be your business structure. Is it structured the right way? But the third thing people don't know is what you put on applications. For example, when a business application asks you, what is your business revenue? Most people don't know that. That question is asking you, what do you predict you're going to make? It's predicted income. So if a person is a brand new business owner, they're going to put, and they don't have the right information, they'll put 0. You're not going to get much funding. They might give you a $5,000 card, but we're helping brand new business owners go get $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 from a lender because we understand what the questions are asking. Another example is if they ask you, what is the nature of your business? Most people don't know that there's something called high risk industries and there's low risk industries. So for example, if someone puts credit repair on the application, you're automatically going to get denied because banks, they believe that credit repair is a high risk industry, so they're not going to deem them any funding. So all of these reasons are reasons that people need to come to us. We understand what they're looking for.
Okay, and then one other thing to clarify is, so let's say I come to you, I want to start a funding company. You're not actually giving them the funds yourself, are you? Or could you also do that? Like, could you actually you're not the one actually going to fund someone. Like the banks are going to do the funding, but you're actually teaching, correct?
We have a service side and then we have our coaching side. So on the service side, we actually do the applications for them.
Oh, wow.
Now, because we
got it.
have direct relationships with relationship banking managers at certain banks, we're able to literally have a banking relationship manager connect with the client, and they'll get on a Zoom so the banking relationship manager can verify the person is obviously who they say they are. And then what happens is they're able to give them their information, and they're able, based on their credit report, still has to be great, same data points applied. But if that's all in position, they're able to push them through. And when they send them the application, they put on a note that is from them. And because they work with underwriting, they're able to get higher limits than people would on their own.
Got it.
Yep.
And then the people you work with, is it mostly, hey, they come in, they're good to go, you help them get the funding, or do they usually come in, their credit's a mess, you got to fix the credit, and then you get them the funding?
So it's literally both.
Okay.
So half of the people, not about half, probably about 30 to 40% of people come in because they want funding, but then about 60 to 70 come in because they want to run a funding company. They're looking to make money. So on the make the money side, it doesn't matter what your credit score is, right?
Right.
Because if you know the skill, you can start making money. In the process of that, they're probably cleaning their credit, obviously, to get in order to be able to get funding for themselves.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So switching a little bit to the personal side, are there any non-negotiables that you have, that's really helped you with your business where, hey, I always do these things or I won't do these things, that's really kind of helped you grow?
Being more linear this year has helped us. So what I mean by that is, I feel like last year was our first year where we have only been in online space about 2 years now, 2 years and like 5 months. First year, I was kind of like, for the education side, whoever's paying me, like I'll kind of break the rules to accommodate, right? You're trying to just get to whatever you're trying to get to. This year, we were very linear. This is our offer. This is the pathway. And I felt what that does is it makes it easier for my team. It makes it easier for fulfillment, and it makes it easier to brand ourselves as the outcome, right? So really getting clear on our messaging has helped because we were back and forth last year between like, do we just want to get people the funding, or are we going to show people the skill of how to run their funding company? So this year has been super clear. And then I would say one business model, right? Going in on one business model has helped us scale. So this year we had our first 7-figure year.
Congrats, that's awesome.
Appreciate it. And it was just, one way of doing everything. So we do multi-day events.
So it was more, from what I heard, it was kind of lack of focus where you had a bunch of different things you were selling and then just focusing on that one thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's crazy because people, they usually think more is better, but usually more is
less is
more
more
complex. Yeah, exactly. Any mentors that you've worked with or you look up to, or like books you've read? So for anyone listening who's trying to learn, is there anyone that, wow, this really helped me, or this book really helped me, or anything like that?
Man, if I tell you how much I spent on just mentors, I've spent a ton of money. I was the guy. Once one worked, I was like, who else can I pay to get more information? I watched a lot of people. I learned from a lot of people. I've learned from I got Runway Billionaire. I've learned from Dion.
Yeah.
I've learned from I got Pushman Mitch. I've learned from a lot of your stuff online. I learned from a lot of people. I spent over probably like 220,000 like the last 18 months on education. Yeah.
What was kind of the turning point for you investing in yourself? Was it literally just the epidemic?
It was me. Yeah, it was me getting access to some money finally to be able to invest in myself. And then it was me. What turned it up was like me seeing the power of it. Like me understanding that, like, bro, I just spent $10,000 on myself, and now we're able to go make $10K a month, $20K a month, $30K, and it just kept climbing. And the more I invested, it was like the more confident I feel. And I always say like competence equals confidence, because when we're trying to do things on our own, it's like you're running in circles. And even when something goes right, you don't know why it went right. But when you got coaches, you understand like, no, this is why this worked. And I know people always say that they think they know what's going on, but there's a difference between knowing and thinking you knowing. And I feel like when you're in, mentorship programs or coaching programs, what happens is you get that clarity. And I feel like that clarity is the key to growth. So that's why.
I love that. What would you say is the most common challenge your team or business encounters on a day-to-day basis? So like, when you're working with clients, you're trying to make sales, like what's maybe like one of the bigger challenges you deal with?
One of the biggest challenges was qualifying leads in the DMs, because people would tell you everything to get on the call. People tell my clerks, oh, I was hoping I was going to talk to Darius. People saying they got over $2,000 at least to invest, getting on the phone and saying they lost it yesterday. Like just a whole bunch of just qualifying people. I feel like now that we've sort of switched from going to direct book a call, and now we do multi-day events, spend 3 days, 5 days with me. It's so much easier.
Like in person or online?
Online.
Okay, got it.
Yes, online. So I do a 3-day challenge or a 5-day challenge, and really just getting to provide that evidence. They say immersion equals conversion. Getting to spend that time. What happens is now it makes it an easier buying process, because we've kind of overcome all their objections throughout the week.
Right.
And they spent time, and they got a sample size of what it would be like to work with me over the next 6 months. So I feel like that's helped our sales process, which before we were struggling with a little bit.
Yeah. You obviously have an application now. So like before, when you were talking about those DMs, were you just, it's like talk to them, they book a call and there's no application?
At
or was
first
that even,
it was that.
Okay.
And then we went to apply. But even on the applications, bro, people will lie. They get on the phone.
Yeah, of course.
So that process. Then we added like after they go through the application, we had a setter reaching out, because we were having for a little while we were having no-show problems too. So then we started like sending them some more value between the time of that they booked the call and the time of the call, especially if it goes over 48 hours, because obviously the longer it is, the more likely they're not to show up.
Right.
So we started implementing all these things, and it did get better. But I just found that the multi-day events was the best avenue in terms
of course. Yeah, it's also a lower ask.
Yeah.
Talk about those events a bit. So that's interesting. Usually challenges, like, depending, can be a decent amount of work. So for a typical challenge, you said it was 3 days, is it an hour a day, 2 hours? What do you kind of do on those challenges to kind of warm people up to make them ready to buy?
I'll do either a 3-day that turns into a 4, or do a 5-day that turns into a 6.
Yeah, that's long, bro. And you do that every week?
No, hell no.
Okay.
No.
I was like, man, you're crazy.
No. Once a month. Once every 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, once every 4 to 6 weeks. So what that do is we'll use about 4 weeks to push tickets, right? Now I was doing higher ticket. It's all low ticket, but higher tickets, which wasn't high. It's like 97, 297, and 597. But what we switched to the last 3 months of the year, and we had our best 3 months doing it, was we switched to lower tickets, because what I found is I've gotten pretty good at selling one-to-many. So it really doesn't matter in terms of how much they pay. I know we say, oh, the people who pay more, they'll probably convert more. But we saw like on our last challenge, even people who were buying $27 tickets were taking a $6,500 offer.
Wow.
So what we'll do is we do a kickoff call where we just really get their mindset prepared. Because what I learned is for my audience, it really is, because a lot of people are starting at 0, right? Or they're at like level 2. So it really is about becoming the person. So when we speak to the mindset, what happens, a lot of these people build a confidence and start to believe. And then what we do is every day throughout the next either 3 or 5 days, we do a morning session from 8:30 to 9, right before they go into work. They're fired up. They're ready to go. Usually I'll just play a video, which is 2 to 3 minutes long. I'll give my insight and how it goes into entrepreneurship. Usually it's a pre-frame, meaning a different aspect of mindset. And then I'll allow some of them to come up and say how that applies to their life. That's the morning. Then we come back in the afternoon and we spend a VIP hour for people who bought a higher ticket. They get to ask a question and I get to answer it. Right now, the reason this is valuable because not only when they ask the question is it valuable to them, but most people in the class, they have similar questions. And so now what's happened is they're learning and they're feeling more confident in their ability. Then the second hour of the day is now teaching. So like day one, it'll be personal credit profile, how to build that out, why it's important, what it's going to do for them. Right. Then the second day we'll do the same thing, morning session. Second day we do like live funding and then showing them how to go get access to funding. Third day we go into selling, understanding how you can sell this to anyone, whether it's a 5-minute conversation, hour-long webinar. And then the last day we'll do on the third day I do an application. So you have to apply to even hear about the offer.
Oh, wow. Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
What made you must have switched, right? You didn't do that to begin with.
I didn't do that the first.
So why did you switch?
Because I had learned from someone that what it does is it creates more scarcity and urgency.
Right.
Because it's like, well, I want to at least hear about the offer. And usually what you'll find is if a person doesn't apply, if they don't take the time to apply, they're probably not going to be someone who's going to want to take the offer. They're too lazy to even apply. So when we do that, what that does is, and it makes people feel like they're inclined to hear about a better opportunity. So since we've done that, it's been good. I've seen an increase in conversion rate. And then on day 4, what we'll do is we will pitch. So usually I'll do that on the selling day. And then on day 5, we'll do a repitch. That might be myself, or I'll have a special guest come on and do a repitch.
Nice. Yeah, the repitch is that's good, man. That's a nice little thing there. And for the listeners, guys, a repitch is just basically it's someone else kind of coming in, rehyping the offer, trying to get those like last stragglers like over the finish line. Yeah. Are there any like skills or knowledge that you would say are really important to be successful in your industry and what you do that, you know, hey, when I learn these skills or when my students or clients learn these skills, it really helps them succeed?
Honestly, it might sound so simple, but like the biggest thing is literally make more offers. Like it's like what we do now, because I find as we coach, obviously we get better at what we do. But you find that like when we got some people crushing it 40, 50,000 a month, and some people they're like struggling to get off the ground. So we do like audits, like live audits now. Well, how many offers did you make this week? None. Yeah. Well, that's why you're not getting the results. Right. So really what we've done is we now have a DM tracker where you have to check in with our CSM every week. We need to know how many offers you make, which days, because what it does is it holds them accountable. So if they're not getting the result, they can clearly see exactly why they're not. And with that, and I feel like that's definitely a skill set that's needed, just effort. And then everything else, I'm going to teach you. Like you're going to learn this thing. So I don't feel like it's something you need to come in with. Like a lot of people who do, you know, maybe webinars or selling, people might think you need a natural ability to sell. But no, I feel like with our business, you don't need to come in with any specific skills.
Something that I noticed like during a conversation, you're pretty well spoken. Did that come from nightlife or where did that come from?
Yeah, that came from a couple of different places actually. So I grew up in Boston. I grew up in the city, but I actually we have something back home called MECO. So it's where city kids get to bus out to like the suburbs.
Right.
So I got to go to school out in an environment which was totally different from where I'm from. So I feel like what that did was it kind of helped me be able to just like speak to all different type of people. Like I feel like any environment I'm in, I can make sure that, you know, I can display my message. I can talk to people. So I feel like that definitely played a part, just having a diverse background. And then nightlife definitely helped because networking is everything. You know, you're speaking to all different type of people from all different backgrounds. And then I went to schools. I went to 4 different schools in 4 different states. So I got to yeah.
You had like a lot of social interaction, a lot of different environments, I guess.
Exactly.
That's key. I think when you can speak well, it definitely it helps, like no matter what in business, because you can communicate a lot clearer.
Absolutely.
Something I like to ask usually at the end of the pods is, you know, what's a question I should have asked you, or what's something we should have touched on that maybe we didn't touch on that you think could help the audience?
Because I kind of know a little bit about your background and like I played football, and I noticed in business a lot of former athletes like crush it in business. So I would say maybe like get into like what do you think help you become a semi-successful or successful entrepreneur? Maybe something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that, but let's get into that. So, you know, you just brought up football. Yeah. So maybe talk about maybe some habits or practices or things you went through that has made you successful.
Absolutely.
And relate it back to the audience.
We always say things happen to us, not for us. So I was a former walk-on, became a starter up at University of Maine. And business now, I feel like I said, I've been there for 2 years. We've been able to grow decently fast. I feel like because of the mindset that football had to develop, right? Especially being a former walk-on. It's like, you know, first in the gym, last to leave, first in the study room, last to leave, and just 365 days out the year, your 6 a.m. workouts, then going to class. So I feel like a lot of times when I came out to real life after school, I was like, damn, everybody's lazy as hell because everyone's always complaining. When I had like one job But it was like people always complaining, people talking about, all the things they got to do. And I'm like, this is regular. So I feel like it's been advantageous for business and how I approach it. Cause I approach business just the way I approach football. Like I like structure. If I'm not doing work, sometimes it may be overkill, but if I'm not doing work, I feel like someone's coming to take my spot. And I just feel like those habits and those disciplines that we develop, make business easier.
Well, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think what helps in sports is when things don't go your way or you're having to do these hard things, you just learn just suck it up and fucking do it, right? Yeah. So for anyone who's listening who maybe didn't get into sports, is there any advice you might give them on like what could they do to get that edge? Because obviously if you're an athlete, it's like you played sports, like you get it.
Yeah.
If they aren't an athlete, is there any advice you might give them to, get that edge? Maybe like, is there something they could read or is there like something else they could do?
For sure. Yeah, I would tell people if you're someone who you weren't an athlete, but you're trying to get more discipline, more focused, one thing I know is like literally do hard things every day.
Yeah.
So think of something you hate doing and every single day do it because that's literally business and football. And then the second thing is getting someone to hold you accountable. I feel like it's such an underrated thing. And I'm talking about people who are really going to be on it because we don't have accountability. Idle time, it's not like we like it sometimes, but it's not the best for us. But if I'm in, let's say me and you chop it up every day and you're like, yeah, I just did, 100,000 today, bro. What'd you do? I just made 20 offers. And I'm like, damn, I haven't even made an offer. I didn't make shit. Eventually, I'm like, you're either not going to talk to me anymore because you're like, this guy's lazy. Or I need to be like, hey, I need to step my shit up because, my guy is going crazy. So I feel like having that accountability is definitely key.
Yeah, I don't know what they said it was, in your brain, but on the Huberman Lab, they were talking about doing the cold plunge every day. And one of the reasons was
hard.
It just meant, it's just hard, right? And then it builds that muscle to continue to do hard things because, even before you get in, it's going to be cold. You don't want to do it. And so I would agree with you, just doing hard stuff on a continual basis. And it gets easier too, because every time you do it, I always, when I have a thought of something that's difficult that I do, I think the thought that comes to me is like, I got through that. And I was like, oh, okay. So it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And so it always makes it easier to do hard things because, a lot of times you're overplaying it in your mind.
Exactly.
And versus just starting and kind of getting through it.
Yeah.
If people want to find you or work with you or know more about you, where are some of the places they can go?
Absolutely. You guys can on all social medias, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, at Darius Benders. And I'm actually hosting a 5-day live mentorship where I'm going to be showing you a lot of things that we talked about today, more in depth. 2 hours every single day. All you have to do, I'll put the link in, I give you the link, but you can just DM me the word mentorship and you'll get an invite. Tickets are like $47.
Love it, dude. Thanks so much for being on the pod.
Appreciate you having me, man.
You bet.